Hey guys, Chris here from flippingcars.co.uk, and this week I'm going to talk to you about the V5 DocRef number. And you're probably thinking, Christ Chris, what are you trying to do? Bore us to tears. And for those of you who don't know, this is the DocRef number on the V5 and this is the serial number on the V5. And if someone wants to do a HPI check, they need the serial number to validate the HPI check. Well, they don't. You only need to do that once you've sold the car. You don't need to give them that information prior to selling the car. But someone called me up and said, Chris, can I get the V5 DocRef number? So I thought nothing of it and gave him the DocRef number, and he arranged to come and view the car. But funnily enough, the guy never turned up. I didn't think too much about it, and a couple of weeks went by and I got another inquiry on the car, and a guy came along and we agreed a deal, and he decided to buy the car. Before we complete the deal, he said to me, Chris, can I just get a HPI clearance certificate to make sure there's no outstanding finance on the car? And of course I was like, yeah, no worries, mate. None of my cars have got finance on them, so it's quite straightforward. So I run the HPI report, and would you believe it? There was a loan on the car, and it was a logbook loan, and the loan had been taken out since I'd owned the car. So I was a bit shocked, and I thought, Christ, how's this? It's got to be a mistake. And I called up the loan company, Loans to Go. And they're one of these logbook loan companies who charge a massive amount of interest, and they've got a loan secured on the car. But because of data protection, they wouldn't talk to me about the loan that was secured on my car, and it has started a nightmare for me. So I called the police. The police don't look into fraud. It's not for them to do. They told me to report it to Action Fraud. Now, Action Fraud take 4 weeks to even consider the case. And Action Fraud too, because they get so many reports of instances of fraud, don't look into every case. But they gave me a number to go back to the police with to report it as a crime. But typically, the police still don't like to look into fraud. So I had to do my own research, and the hardest part for me was to find out who was on the logbook, because DVLA won't tell you. The police can check it, but they won't tell you. And the logbook loan company, they won't tell you because of data protection. So it's my car. I own it, I've paid for it, but there's a loan secured on it and nobody wants to help. So I had to apply to the DVLA stating why I needed this information, and I sent it off, and 4 weeks later I got a response saying, no, you need to word it this way. Another 4 weeks went by, and then I got another response, and I found out who it was. And I Googled the guy, and he didn't live too far away from me. And I messaged him on Facebook. I searched Facebook, found him on Facebook, sent him a message, and it turned out that he'd been a victim of well, I say a victim, he'd actually committed the fraud on the vehicle, but someone else, a well-known fraudster, had actually talked to him to go into the logbook loan company and taken out the loan in his name, and they'd registered the V5 in this guy's name as well. They're also meant to produce the car, which they couldn't have done because I've got the keys to the car and it was locked up in my unit, so I'm assuming they've used a cloned car to go and do this with. So anyway, this guy has turned around and said to me, look, you know, Chris, I'm ever so sorry. I've been a victim myself. I got paid something like 400 quid to take out 80 grand worth of logbook loans on different cars around the West Midlands. And I've just been one of those people that he'd taken advantage of as well. So anyway, to cut a long story short, the police eventually decided to look into the case, but only because I'd done all the research. I'd had a Facebook chat record from when I'd spoken to this person. I'd had an acknowledgement of fraud from the logbook loan company, who really didn't want to help me when I was trying to sort this all out. And considering now they're the ones that were going to take the big loss in the long term, they really didn't want to help me. But it all went back to the police, and they looked into it, and the DVLA agreed that the car was mine. But this whole process went on for even longer. After they'd agreed that the car was actually mine, they wanted me to take photos of the VIN, they wanted me to provide evidence of me owning the vehicle from the auctions, and this took months to resolve. Now you might think, Chris, what a silly mistake to make, but can you honestly ask yourself this? If someone asked you for the document ref number off a V5, or if someone came to look at your vehicle and asked to see the V5, you're going to hand that V5 over to them, aren't you, so they can have a look? Now they could have actually just come in and looked at the V5 and took a photo of that doc ref number or written it down. So you've got to be really careful. And you might think, Chris, it's such a schoolboy error, but if you go onto some of the big car dealer websites out there, you'll see they list all the V5s with the doc ref number visible. So I could go onto those websites, and some of them have 1,000 cars in stock, could register 1,000 cars in my own name and go and apply for 1,000 loans at different logbook loan companies if I really wanted to. Obviously I'm not going to do that because I'm a decent hard working person, but there's scumbags out there who are quite happy to take you to the cleaners. So the lesson is here: if someone ever phones up and asks for the doc ref number for a HPI check, don't give it out. If they ask for the serial number, which they do need on the HPI certificate once all the data needs validating, but they don't need it to start with. Do not give it out unless they now own that vehicle, they have bought that vehicle off you, because you'll stand to lose a lot of money. If you've got 10, 20 grand in a car and you've given out that DocRef number, these fraudsters will take advantage of you. And as I say, there's some big car dealers out there with this information readily available. They didn't need to come to the small guy like me. They could have just gone straight to the big player and cloned as many vehicles as they wanted to, but they chose to try and rip me off. And they actually did. They got away with it to a certain point. Unfortunately for them, they're now being prosecuted, and the main fraudster behind it has got a history of fraud and served time in prison for fraud, as well as other things. He's a right shady character, but he'll obviously be doing a bit more time as well. So protect the V5 details. If someone wants to see it, just satisfy yourself that they're a serious buyer. There's no real need for them to actually see the V5. The information on there is purely just the number of keepers, and you can provide that information from a cap valuation instead, or run the HPI report yourself and give them a copy when they come along. Protect that information, otherwise it will cost you a lot of money. Remember, I've got 5,000 plus YouTube subscribers now, heading for 10,000, so if you don't already, please do subscribe and leave me a comment below. I'll get back to all positive comments, and I look forward to talking to you soon.